Hey guys, I'm so excited to be here with my new friend Naomi. We were just talking before recording about healing and what it takes. Healing is not linear, all the different facets that go into your life when healing. And today we're talking about how to move through trauma. So, Naomi, can you tell everyone a little about yourself before we dive into our conversation?
Yeah, of course. So my name is Naomi Lerman. I am a sexual assault survivor and I'm a sexually informed trauma coach. I work with women who've experienced sexual trauma and I help them and guide them to heal joyfully without reliving the past. I created the Victory Dance method to do just that, which I'm sure we'll hop into and we'll talk about a little bit. And I really used the experiences that I had with all the healing that I've had to go through and experience. And I decided I wanted to be that guide for people that I didn't have. I can be the person that understands what you're going through. And I also, I walked through the fire and I felt the burns, and yet I'm still here. And not only am I here, I'm living joyfully, happily, and choosing my life for the first time in almost 40 years. I turned 40 in October. So
Happy birthday. I can
huge.
identify
Happy
with
birthday.
that. I know, I went through trauma as a little girl with like a rageaholic stepfather, an alcoholic dad, all that kind of stuff. And I think so many of us do. Um, Talk to me about I mean, I know we get to a path and like everything's necessary that we do, all the path like leads to where we are at this current place. But talk to me about how you started to heal and what progression that took to take you this place that you are now.
So I had sort of felt like I had been doing all the things and I had been checking all the boxes, but I never really felt happy. So I did the traditional therapies, I did psychiatry, I had psychiatric hospital stays. I started trying more alternative things, and nothing really stuck, nothing really worked. And then I discovered a coach who it worked. I connected with her mentality and her thought process. And I started really digging into mindset work and understanding that the choices, the thoughts that I have in my head, I'm choosing them.
Yeah.
And the idea of choice was very surprising to me in my life. I remember saying to my husband years like when I really wasn't in a good place, "Oh, I must do this. I have no choice." And he's like, "What do you, he's it's so not him." He's like, "What are you talking about? Of course you have a choice. You're choosing to do it whether you like it or not, whether you want the choice or not. It's your choice." And so when I was able to translate that to my mindset and to choose the thoughts, like when I'm feeling deep depression, and I'm not saying I don't feel suicidal still anymore or have moments of deep depression, but I can now have the capability and the capacity to say, okay, I see that I'm feeling that way. It can go two directions. One, I could say, okay, how have I not been taking care of myself, or what has happened that I'm now looking at it this way and go on a more cerebral level? Or I could take it another direction and start thinking, okay, how can I release it from my body, or what sort of spiritual practice can I use? And so it's realizing I have the capacity and the choice to be thinking that thought, and then taking that a step further and seeing what I want to do with it. And that's what really opened up my healing. That's the one piece. And the other piece is really understanding that how much my body and taking care of my body, especially as a sexual trauma survivor, rape
Yeah.
survivor, where you don't feel safe in your own skin. And there are definitely periods of my life where I was very heavy. I was dressing very masculine in a way to sort of protect myself, never wearing makeup. I went 10 years without a mirror in my house. And all of a sudden, when I started understanding that I could choose the noise in my head, I didn't have to just let it happen to me. I started to realize, okay, well, if I want to be able to do that work, I need to drink more water. I need to be eating, not like going full out and having the best wholesome diet ever and then totally falling off and
Yeah.
eating garbage and treating myself very poorly. I found a way down the middle where I can have days where I'm under a lot of stress and I don't eat well, but that doesn't mean anything about me. It doesn't label me as anything. It's just, it happened. And then I get back on track because I know when I eat well and I move my body and I love lifting heavy weights and I love dancing and I love swimming and all these things. I discovered that love and I've seen what it feels like to take care of myself. So now I can do that actively as part of my healing process to take care of my body and my mind and my soul. And it's totally and utterly connected, which was also a huge step in my healing process of understanding that I'm a whole being and it all sort of has to align. I can't just work on one piece or the other. It's sort of an integrated process, which is exactly how I coach. It's very unique to each individual, very integrated. We start with the foundational mindset piece, and we work on the body, however that looks for the specific person, and the soul, however that looks. It doesn't have to be God. It can be higher power, Mother Earth,
Yeah.
source energy, but it's a connection to something larger than yourself. Because sometimes healing that connection is a little easier than healing the personal connection. And so that's on one side. And the other side, realizing that we are all have a piece of this source, this energy in ourselves. And if that's true, then that means that I can grow it and I can feel that in my entire body to a point where I have this capacity and this capability for infiniteness.
Yeah.
And that lives within me. And I can keep growing that. And by drinking more water, the basics, by drinking more water and starting
By
my day off
sleeping
with
good, by eating
nutrition.
good food.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think when
And
we're
that's
not
tapping
doing
into
those
that infinite
things,
godliness.
I mean, I think for a lot of people, the struggle with trauma is that you feel that like hopelessness, and you also feel a detachment from body and mind and spirit,
Yeah.
a disassociation in order to survive. And so that
Yeah.
I know for myself, like my first addiction was an eating addiction. And it
Yeah.
was like,
Which is
when
not
I,
surprising.
yeah, starved myself or binged and purged, it was like just something that could keep me away from being within my body.
I think also it gives you the sort of false idea that you're in control by
Exactly.
controlling your food,
Yeah.
restricting or eating compulsively. It's like I didn't have control over my body when I was abused, when I experienced neglect, when I experienced rape. And so by controlling my food, it's taking control back. Yes, yes, it is. But you're also
But it's a false
continuing the story of
control, just
hurting.
as you
It's
said.
destructive.
Yeah.
It's destructive, but it's understanding, it's accepting that and being okay with it, because there's no point in putting more shame and blame in ourselves. But just as we hold this capacity of control by restricting and compulsive eating, we can also then hold the capacity of nourishing ourselves. It also is a sense of control when you take hold and you fuel yourself in a way that's like the best way for you personally. Technically, that also is a sense of control, but it's a healthier sense of control to create the life that you want to live by making those choices.
What are the things I would love to hear this from you? Because I think we all talk about like changing our mindset. But what are some pivotal things that happen for you when you are feeling down on yourself? Because I think it's those changes like that a lot of people struggle with and never get to that other side.
Yeah. So I would say like the three major things that I tap into usually when I'm feeling that way, which when you're running a health-based business and trying to like I hear stories all day long that are terrible, like you just shared. It's a hard world out there.
Yeah.
And also on top with my own personal struggles. So I would say the three things that are um major mindset tools that I would use. So one is the power of choice, like we talked about, where having the awareness, and this can be so hard because sometimes you just want to feel like crap. Sometimes you just want
Yeah.
to sit on the couch and sit in your depression. And I don't care if the world is sparkly and clean out there, but I do not want to be a part of that. And so it's the power of choice, but part of that power of choice sometimes is having people in your life that can look at you and say, do you really want to sit like a grump on the couch right now, feeling like it has to be someone safe, clearly, and
Yeah.
it has to be a conversation you've had with them, but and not coming from a negative place, coming from a place of love. And like sometimes my husband has pulled me into a game with our kids, and I do not. And no, one atom in my body wants to be playing this game, but by the end of it, I'm making the choice to play it and then I let go of how I'm feeling and I'm laughing hysterically and enjoying myself. So it's understanding you have a choice. Sometimes you can choose to continue to stay in that dark place and that's okay and that's part of it. And part of healing is feeling those hard feelings and allowing
Yeah.
yourself to feel them because a lot of times we push them down and we think, oh, by pushing them down and ignoring them, eventually they'll go away. No, 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 no. They build to like the biggest uninvited monsters in your head, your body, and your soul. So talking about them, letting them go, feeling them out is really important. But a mindset shift in it is understanding you do have a choice and you can choose to step up and do a victory dance, be a part of a game with the people in your life or whatever it is. The second piece would be the pause, the power of the pause, where when you're feeling rage or anger or depression or whatever it is, and you can choose to stop and to breathe and just to hold the moment and not to act on it and not to react. And the longer you can hold that pause, the more you can start to realize that whatever you were about to do, it probably wasn't worth it. It probably
Yeah.
was not the choice that you would have made. Now that you've paused, you realize there is a better choice that you can make, a more loving choice that you can make. So that would be the second mindset shift. And then the third mindset shift is understanding that our mind is very, very powerful. And we can say that I might be feeling this way right now. And I also am strong and I also am
Yeah.
capable and
Yeah.
holding two truths at the same time that I might be a survivor of rape and I might have experienced abuse in my life and I might have all the reasons to be a drug addict on the street and homeless. And I also am a beautiful soul that has talents that I want to give back. And I'm unique. I'm not an alien. Like calling myself an alien, I realized was actually such a like a, it's not a nice thing to say, but maybe I am unique, and that's a positive thing. So
Right.
it's holding two truths at the same time that might be completely opposite, and that can lead to being open and having capacity for what life can bring instead of sort of getting stuck in the muck with the negative thoughts and memories and flashbacks that you might be experiencing.
Well, you just, oh my God, you read my mind. You led me into this next question, which is when you go through these traumatic experiences, I know for myself, I held on to that for so long. And I
Yeah.
didn't walk around like poor me. I just was looking for love in all the wrong places, trying to
Yeah.
fill this void, trying to fill like self-esteem, trying to like reteach myself how to love in a safe way, how to be
Yeah.
loved, most of all how to be loved and whether I was worth it. So how did you go through this traumatic experience and let go of it? I mean, you never forget, but how did it start to become something that wasn't choking you?
So I know this might sound crazy or counterintuitive, but the thing is that I sort of decided not to focus on it. And I just kept putting one foot in front of the other and doing the more small things, proving to myself that I say I'm going to do something and I actually do it. I say I'm going
Yeah,
to drink 3 liters water a day and I do it. And I would track and be like, wow, look, you did it. For 2 weeks straight, you did it. And that says something about me. That says that I'm someone that has integrity. I'm someone that has value. I say what I'm going to do. And then I would then do other smaller things in my life to prove, to show to myself that this is who I am, that I am worthy. And I wasn't making the conscious choice to replace messages or to let go of trauma. It was more just, let's see what happens if I do this and what does this say about me and try to have an awareness and also having coaches in my life that could point these things out
yeah,
to me when I couldn't see them myself. And then one day, I was standing in the mirror. I was standing in an elevator, excuse me, with mirrors, and I looked in the mirror. And I always avoided looking in the mirror, but for some reason that day I looked in the mirror and I thought nothing. I felt nothing. It was totally neutral. And that's when I realized that the work I had been putting into myself by exercising on a regular basis, starting to set boundaries in relationships, just doing the things that I really wanted to do
yeah,
to fill myself with value, filling my ears with positive podcasts, reading positive things, not listening to music that made me feel depressed and angry. I don't like it that I can't watch a sad movie or I can't do those things, but I have to choose not to in order to continue to live in a more open space instead of that shameful, dark place. And maybe one day I will be able to watch something that brings me back to that. But now I know I must make these choices for myself because this is the life I want to live and this is what it takes. And
yeah.
so, really, it was about sort of I think with the therapy, it was like so focused on what happened and digging into it and all those things. And when I sort of stopped doing that and I started just saying, okay, what do I want my life to look like? Let's start dreaming. And then what would that person, that future person that I'm dreaming of, what would she do every day to fill her life in the way that she wants and to start dreaming bigger and bigger? And then the trauma just sort of released itself. It
Yeah.
was like I stopped trying to control it. And at that point, it saw the light of
Well, you
day and
felt
it didn't
safe
stop
in your
talking about it.
body. I mean, I think
Yes.
that's a big part is like all
Yeah.
the work that you had done to create that safety. Because I know for myself, I was like scared to love somebody. I thought they were going to
Yeah.
leave. I thought they were going to abandon me, like stuff that had happened like as a child. And it's like,
Yeah.
how do we show up in the world and not have that trauma defining every second?
I think it's also proving to yourself that you're not going to abandon you.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like I really don't like the Miley Cyrus song. The like I could buy myself flowers on her because I always feel like, no, I want someone to buy me flowers and I want someone to write my name in the sand. And I'm like, okay, I can dream and that can be fine and that can be part of my life. But at the end of the day, like you, if you don't value yourself and you don't think you're worthy and you don't feel think that you're lovable and you don't feel safe in your own skin, then you will continue to be in relationships and to find yourself in situations that are unsafe because that's the energy you're putting out. So it's doing that work and proving to yourself like I am safe in my body and I am worthy. And this happened to me, but it doesn't define me, like you said.
Yeah. Talk to me about your signature method because I would really love to hear how you take your clients. I know the mind and the body and the spirit piece is a real important element, but talk to me about how you approach that with your clients.
Okay, so I call it the victory dance method because how the whole thing started was the first tool I started using was the victory dance. I called the victory dance moment. And I started to realize, okay, I wanted to fill my life with more joy and to focus the work on that piece of it instead of the painful piece. So I noticed that like, when I got an email that I was really looking forward to, I would just move my body like, yes, oh my goodness, like that natural reaction. Or you won a prize, you won the lottery, like you're gonna just flail your arms in
Standing
happiness. You
proud.
don't have control, right? You don't have control over that reaction. It's just like pure unadulterated joy, right? And so I realized that that's something just like all these other tools that I'd put into place that I could actually use as like a habit, a tool. So I started using it as a daily habit where I would do it in the morning or the evening and just sort of make it a practice in my life, like people do mindfulness or yoga. And this was something that actively filled my body and reminded my body what it feels like to feel joy. Sometimes
Yeah.
I would do it with music, sometimes I would do it without music in the car, whatever it was. And then after that, I started to try and integrate it when I was feeling really down, unsafe in my body, uncomfortable. I would almost force myself, and it is a forcing at the beginning, but I knew based on the habit how I would feel after. So I would force myself to do this victory dance and to feel the joy. So when I discovered this specific tool, I started to think about, okay, how did I get myself here? How did my whole healing process untangle itself and how did that happen? So that's when I came up with this method based on this victory dance idea of splitting it up mind, body, and soul. So, first of all, as we spoke about, setting the grounds for the mindset and being able to, it's
Yeah.
like, I know it's so out there, it's so cliche. Like you said, we all talk about mindset. But at the end of the day, you could do all the workouts, you can do all the gut fixes, you can do all the detoxes. But if you're continuing to tell yourself, I'm shameful, I'm disgusting, I'm
Yeah.
not worthy, none of those things are really going to work because of the messages you're telling yourself. So we start with the mindset piece to really recreate a foundation of safety, starting with your mind, because it's really the most powerful part of you. And then that's the first four. My program is 3 weeks. So that's sorry, 3 months, excuse me. The first 4 weeks of the program, the first month, we work on mindset, creating that foundation, that sense of safety, common language, etc. Then in the second month, we move to body. This is really specific to the client, but like we said, we start talking about how nutrition plays a part in mental health and even not, I'm not telling you don't eat cake. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not going to tell you what to eat, but really just making sure we're drinking enough water. We're starting with a healthy breakfast that's not sugar heavy, that's going to make you
Yeah.
go like this, just even physiologically, right? So it's hard to do the mental health work. And then also bringing in movement. What movement can you bring into your life as a mental health tool? Not to over exercise and to run on a treadmill like a crazy person, but rather to maybe it's something like Nia dance. I don't know if you saw, some people haven't heard of this, like there's so many things out there, yoga, whatever it is, we can find what makes you feel good, what makes you feel safe in your body.
Yeah.
And of course, I integrate the victory dance also because it's sort of a foundational, you don't need anything with you. It doesn't cost any money. You can do it wherever you are. And then the final piece is the soul, where we start understanding this infinite peace we have in ourselves and healing that. It's sort of that like next level of healing. And through all of this, we create as a team your mental health toolbox, what I call the mental health toolbox. And depending on how creative and how much visualization people like, we visualize it. And some days it's like a leopard print bag, and sometimes it's a doctor bag or whatever it is, right? And we fill it with the tools that we can use between therapy sessions, between
Yeah.
psychiatry sessions, in the moment when it's hard, where you can just grab for them, whether it's a PDF that we've created together, or just we talk about it, however it works best for the client. So we have that set of tools where it's not a guessing game in the moment. And at the end of the 3 months, we have a victory dance graduation party, because it wouldn't be the victory dance method without a dance party. And then if the decision is made to move on to the next section, I do a 3 month second part of it where we start to dream big. And it's about putting into place the tools that we've just created, and this expansiveness and this capacity now for joy and for magic and this safety. We start to dream. And what's that dream that's been sitting on that back shelf? And how
Yeah.
can we use these new tools in order to get you towards that dream? So it's a 6 month program in all, if the client decides to sign on for the second half. And again, it all ends with a big victory dance party, because it's just fun. And why not laugh and have fun? Like that's really like the more we can laugh and have fun in our sessions,
Yeah.
we do talk about hard things, and there are times where we have to do grounding exercises together, and we talk about hard things, and we have to make hard decisions, and go through negative, intense, deep things. But at the end of the day, if we can breathe and we can let it go, there's always a place for just bringing that joy back in at some point.
What have you found helpful to find clients?
So as I was saying before we started recording, it's a funny area to be working in, not funny, I guess, but it's hard for people. It's hard for people to reach out, to a random person on the internet, because I do online coaching mostly. So the best thing that works for me is being myself and showing who I am now and telling my story. I think a lot of people, when I first started showing up in the social media space, thought, oh, here's another trauma coach. She probably hasn't even experienced sexual trauma. She doesn't really know what she's talking about. Look, she's so happy. Like she doesn't understand at all what I'm going through. But that's not the case. So I do tell my story. I tell it often in different ways, depending on the setting. I always try to be there with whomever is watching my content with me, and in a sense of like understanding where they're coming from, and I just keep
Yeah.
showing up. And right now I'm running a 4-day challenge actually, and I plan to do it monthly. And it's hard, people don't want to get engaged. They'll It's a lot of private messaging and more anonymous work, but I truly and honestly believe that, just because I'm in the baby stages of my business, like if I have a long-term lifetime vision of healing and creating a global movement. I really and honestly believe in the work that I'm doing. And I think that's the
Yeah.
other piece. I genuinely know that this will help you, and it will release you from the shackles of what you've been living in. And I
Yeah.
see it time and time again. And so because I know it's going to work, I just keep showing up, even when there's no public engagement, even when I'm not, maybe the algorithms aren't seeing the movement. But I think in the last month tripled the amount of people on my email list, tripled my followers and stuff like that. Like, because I just keep showing up and I just keep believing
Yeah.
in what I'm doing, and I don't give up. And I know that there's like a higher truth to what I'm doing. And I want to reach the women that really need my help, because I don't want them to feel the way that I felt. And I felt like that for way too long. And it honestly wasn't so long. There's women that reach out to me that are in their 70s and have never spoken their story out loud. No, not even their husband knows their story.
Yeah.
And because I just keep showing up and keep being me, they feel that sense of safety to be able to talk about it. And so I have a long-term vision, and it's just I just believe that it's making a difference, and that's really the bottom line.
What do you do on a daily basis to build your confidence? Because I think when I
Oh,
think of
such a good
coaches,
question.
I think of so many of them who struggle with showing up. That's the thing. When I first started my business 15 years ago, I, similar to you, was like, I didn't want a woman to suffer in the ways that I did.
Yeah.
And I birthed like toxic kids who had their own health issues. I didn't want a woman to go through that. And so it was like that drive and that big why just had me show up, even when I didn't even know what to say. So what do
Yeah.
you think works for you? I know your why is big. You've talked about that in detail. What are some of your confidence boosters that you do?
So I'm a huge proponent of movement and mantra, moving while saying powerful messages. I was definitely the person who, if you had mentioned that to me, I don't know, a few years ago, I would have laughed in your face and been like, absolutely not. I am never doing this ever. That sounds so ridiculous. And I'm someone who's stood on stages and played all different types of characters. But when it's me, little Naomi Lerman, having to say those things out loud, I am brave. And I just felt, I thought, oh, that's so silly. But the fact of the matter is it works. It does work. And I actually do it with my kids now. So that's something that I do when I'm feeling
Oh,
really down. I have a few people that I follow and we do it together sometimes with my kids and it's such so powerful. And your brain is always listening. So even if you're
yes.
not feeling brave and even if you don't feel like showing up or that you feel like your message isn't important, if you just keep telling yourself that out loud, then your mind believes it, even if your heart doesn't believe it. So that's one piece. And the secondary piece is listening to people that inspire me, podcasts, audiobooks, music, and just reminding myself that they're maybe on their chapter 20 and I'm on my chapter 1. And just because what I'm doing right now doesn't look like it's at the level that they're doing, it doesn't mean anything about me. And we all have to start somewhere and just keep reminding myself.
Yeah.
And also, this is something that someone like you can understand this, where you've been through a lot of really difficult things in your life. At the end of the day, it's like doing what I'm doing in my business can be hard, but it's does not feel like all the terrible things that I've experienced in my life. And it's slightly unrelated, but it was the same thing like giving birth. When I was in labor, it was like, yeah, this is terribly painful. But at the end of it, I get a gift of a beautiful
Yeah.
child. So even though it's painful, even though sometimes really, I mean, maybe not like labor, but starting a business and coaching and putting yourself out there online and marketing yourself, it can be hard and uncomfortable and whatever it is. But I've been through so many way worse things in my life that feeling a little embarrassed or putting myself out there in order to reach my why and to reach more people and to really have this global movement that I know in my head is going to happen. Feeling a little embarrassed is just par for the course. And just continuing to tap into that joy and those messages and those mantras and surrounding myself with positive messages.
That is so wonderful. I mean, what would you say is your favorite platform that you like to show up on?
Um, It's funny, I really get the most engagement on Facebook, but I like Instagram. I like the
It's so funny. I'm the same way. I get the most engagement on Facebook, but I love Instagram. But I do really well
visual
on
capacity
YouTube.
of,
I do
oh,
really well
really?
on YouTube. I don't get tons of, like, I don't have my videos when I did health videos got tons of views. But I find that people, when they're Googling for a problem, will find my video on YouTube and then contact.
So I haven't tapped into the YouTube market. It actually makes me a little bit scared. But now that I'm having this conversation with you, I'm like, I'm gonna break that glass ceiling. I'm gonna do YouTube thing. That's working for you. Maybe it will work for me. But I guess sort of YouTube is like the parent of Instagram, meaning it's
Yeah,
longer form, but there's still that visual
yeah,
capacity. You got me thinking. I also just like I find the commenting and the community aspect of Instagram like I love that you can sort of go onto anyone's account and put yourself out there. And that's definitely part of my strategy is going on to other people that work in the areas of trauma and seeing what they're talking about and putting my
yeah.
voice out there. And people start following me because of that, because they say, wow, I relate to her and they check me out. And just trying to continually show up and be myself. And Instagram is like a really good place for that. I find with the Facebook groups, which is also a very common strategy that people recommend. I feel like it's a little feel more stilted in there for whatever reason. And when
Yeah.
I'm like scrolling on Instagram and I see something that really does personally grab my attention and I genuinely have a comment about it and then I comment, I actually get a lot of feedback. So it seems more personal and more like a genuine reaction on Instagram.
What would you say? What would you say for a woman who has gone through some sexual assault or rape? How does trauma show up in their life? Because I think
Oh,
when you're so
not.
disassociated from it, you don't see that
Yeah.
showing up in all these different, like before we were recording, you were saying like you could be in a market and somebody just happens to push into you and you have all this rage. So give me
Yeah.
some other examples, because I know we've talked about food addiction, we've talked about addiction, but some of the more subtle ways that it shows up.
Right. Those sort of seem like the more obvious, the ones that people talk about. So one of the areas of my business that my coaching practice that I haven't really tapped into, but it really speaks to this because I think it's really, really, really important. That one of the areas of our lives that, especially when it comes to sexual trauma and rape, that it's you're going to be holding it in your body, you're not even going to realize it until you get pregnant and you have a being in your womb and you
Yeah.
are no longer in control of your body and there's something taking over, right? And so people that haven't experienced sexual trauma or rape don't understand this. They think, oh, it's this beautiful miracle of, but at the end of the day, if you're someone that's experienced a lack of control in that part of your body, it can be scary. And there's no one to turn to. And I had no one to ask questions. I felt weird and strange. And why am I thinking this? And how am I feeling this way? And I happened to hire a doula, not happened, I guess. Nothing just
Yeah.
happenstance. But she happened to ask me, no one else had asked me, not my doctor, nobody. She asked me, this is a very personal question, but I just want to ask you, have you experienced sexual trauma or rape in your life? It's like, you know what, I have. And she was like, okay, great. We need to talk about this. And I started explaining to her how pregnancy felt like to me. And she was like, yeah, that makes total sense. And then again, with the labor process, like people are looking at that part of your body. You're like,
Yeah.
you're totally exposed. And when you're in labor, you're at the whim of other people that are supposed to be taking care of you and safe, right? So it's definitely that's like a huge place that that is something I do want to start talking about more and being more open about because I think the whole process of birth and labor can be extremely re-traumatizing for people that have
Well,
experienced
and I
sexual assault
think
and trauma.
especially even when we talk about intimacy with your partner,
Oh, yeah, that's a
that
whole
can
nother
really show
story,
up
of
in a
course.
different area and be a
And
really,
unexpected.
yeah,
Unexpected. Like a lot of people think, oh, I've worked through the flashbacks, but it's really the fact of the matter is it's sitting in your body and you might love this person you're being intimate with, but then all of a sudden, boom,
yeah,
something happens, however that manifests, and your partner doesn't understand and you don't know. You think, okay, well, I just don't say anything, but they feel it. And it's like that's definitely something that I've worked through with in my coaching practice with people. And it's not a place to feel shame or blame or guilt. It's like literally your body is just reacting and it's about learning, understanding, having the awareness and releasing it. But
yeah.
also, like, these are, I guess, the more obvious where it is these intimate parts of our body. But like we said, like, you could be in a bustling bus, like a very busy bus with other people, and someone knocks into you, or a loud noise, or also even with kids. Like, once you have kids, kids do all sorts of crazy things, jumping on you unexpectedly, coming from you from behind, being aggressive, but in a playful way just might all of a sudden you might like we said feel rage or fear or shame or whatever it is and you
Yeah.
might not understand where that's coming from and these are all things that we can work through and it's again it's totally normal and I think the normalization of it and like going back to how I show up in terms of my marketing is like normalizing these things like there is nothing to feel shame or blame or guilt about and and when you react negatively say with your kids and you snap at them and they don't understand what's going on and they feel afraid how do we
Yeah.
manage that how do we heal that bond how do we heal our bond with ourselves for that reaction these are all things we can do when we start talking about it, when we start normalizing it and
Well, and
saying,
I think
okay,
something that you've brought up multiple times is like you hire a safe coach, you have
yeah,
safe people around you, you get a
yeah.
doula, like all these
And you
things
have a plan,
to
you
create
prepare.
safety in the
Yeah.
places so that you start to learn how to be safe with yourself.
And I think even before that, the integral piece is understanding that you're worthy of a plan. You're
Yeah.
worthy of a team of safe people.
Yeah.
And so it's like interconnected and they can happen at the same time. And that's the work. That's the daily work. I still find myself sometimes in interactions or relationships where I'm like, wait a minute, why am I this moment and reacting in this way? And that's the thing, like healing, like we said, is not linear. It's definitely spiral, cyclical, I don't know, tornado, storm, whatever, depending on the day.
Tsunami.
Um, it's a tsunami, and it's that acceptance and that, okay, I used to fight all the time, like, oh, I'm always sick, I'm always this, I'm always that, I'm always the other thing. But the fact of the matter is, like, I'm me, and that's okay. And however that manifests and however that looks, we just need to work with that instead of fighting against it and either overfilling our lives so that we just can pretend it doesn't exist, or
Yeah.
getting so stuck in it and then not being able to do the healing either.
Well, I know for myself, it manifested in overworking, overcompensating,
Yeah.
overworking, people pleasing.
Yeah.
Those kind of things were really big in my life because I didn't want anything to happen. I wanted everyone to feel okay. And those
Yeah.
things are so ingrained in us from the trauma that we really have to unlearn.
So that's when I started doing the 12 steps for codependency. That's really when I realized that all of that was survival, coping
Yeah,
mechanism, so unhealthy. I thought like, wow, I'm this incredible person. I can hold so much and do so much and take care of so many people. And look at me. It was like
yeah,
this badge of honor.
I can
But when
identify.
I was able to step back and realize like it's just a coping mechanism, and the reason I feel so angry and resentful is because I keep drinking poison and expecting someone else to die, which is like,
Yeah,
that classic statement. That was when I could be like, okay, my life sometimes can look very slow, and that's healthy. And sometimes it can look very fast and filled, and
yeah.
that's also healthy. But it's making, again, back to the conscious choice
You
of
just
why
read my
it
mind. I was
starts.
like, she's talking about this conscious choice again.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, do I really want to wash these dishes right now? Or if I wash these dishes, will I be resentful that my husband just didn't do it? And then it's like having that hard conversation. Like, I'm sure you understand having that conversation with someone and setting a boundary or making a request literally can feel like stepping into a pool of lava. And it
Yeah,
can be the hardest thing. And that's again like part of the coaching that I do and putting myself out there for marketing. Like, if you haven't been there or you don't understand this concept might be so alien to you. Like, what do you mean? You just make the request,
yeah.
But it's like
But if
you need
you
it 20 times
fear
sometimes.
asking for support because you've been let down in the past, it
Yeah.
feels like you go into a panic.
And also you're you create an apocalypse in your head of how the other person might react.
Yeah,
And
totally.
it's the fear of the reaction that might not even come. Like, still to this day, sometimes I'll like be a little nervous to ask my husband about something, and I'll tell him and I'll be like, sure, whatever. It's like, wait, I just spent the last 5 minutes preparing myself for like this apocalyptic avalanche of
Yeah.
emotion, and it never came.
I was
So
just
it's
talking to
it's
my
like,
mom this morning about how do we show up and still hold on to our voice when we have been
yeah,
in the role of people pleasing our whole life, taking care of everyone.
yeah.
Like, how do you actually develop that so that you can show up and not feel resentful or be passive aggressive or a lot of the other things that come with people pleasing or come with taking care of everyone but yourself?
Also, what's shocking to a lot of people when they start to understand and have this awareness and start to try to not people please, and you end up doing the complete opposite, where you set these like brick wall hard boundaries and you like blast people, and that's
Yeah.
going to happen, and it's totally normal, and there's nothing wrong with you, and it's understanding that that's part of the process, and it's finding the middle ground, and it's about figuring out who do I want to be. And I often ask myself this question, like, if I want to walk away from this conversation with my head held high and feeling like I lived in my why, I lived as a person I wanted to live, and I interacted in this world in the way that I wanted to interact, how would that look like in this conversation? And sometimes I'll
Yeah.
have conversations in my head 5, 6, 7 times before I have the actual conversation. And that's where I am now, and that's okay. And maybe one day I won't have to do that. It's probably was 14 times before, and now maybe it's 7. I'm
Yeah.
working on getting better.
I think it's having also compassion for yourself and for the healing and for the journey. Like you and I were talking about before we recorded, the amount of things that we've needed to do to heal. And sometimes I feel like I'm not further ahead. Like I look at other people. I love when you said, like, if this doesn't resonate with you, like, I totally get that because there are some people, they don't have that self-esteem issue. Like they really,
You, you understand this.
but I know that I'm grateful for the work that I've done.
You can also say though, as I jokingly say that the coach who I hired, who really opened up piece of my healing. She is someone that does not struggle with self-esteem at all. It's not something she's ever struggled with.
Wow.
And I know for a lot of people like you and I, that can be very off-putting, and people shy away from that and are like, oh, but honestly, for me, it was like I wanted to show up like her. So I'm going to
Yeah.
put her in my sphere so I can understand how does she do it? Even though it's not a struggle, she is doing something that's
Yeah.
helping her feel that way. And so having people in my sphere that are whom I want to be when I grow up, and then
Yeah.
learning from them, even though we might want to shy away from them because it makes us uncomfortable, it makes us feel lesser than, it's understanding that there's no reason why you can't be there. And having those types of genuine people in your life can show you what life can look like, and present for you a goal and a dream.
Do you think we've missed anything in this conversation?
Hmm. So I think I'm just so happy that we spoke. First and foremost, I'm happy that you shared your story and everything that you've gone through, and you've given me the opportunity and the platform to talk about the work that I do and the importance of it. I think the biggest takeaway that I want people to have is that when you are working in this field in health, and you're working in um, sometimes with hard topics, it's about also taking care of yourself and having the people in your personal life that can build you up, and doing the things in your life like we talked about, the mantras and the movement for me, and the books, and knowing that other people have been there, and don't be shy and reach out, and at the end of the day, we're all in a helping field. Anyone that's listening, I'm assuming, to this podcast, we're in a helping field. And the best thing we can do is to help each other and not to fight against each other, to feel like we're competition or whatever it
Yeah.
is. We can all work together to create an incredible network of there's a client for every person, and no one's taking a client away from anybody else, because that's just not how the world works energetically. And so the more we can be there for each other and to support each other, um, the better the place the world will be, the more joyful, the more magical, the more beautiful the place the world can be.
Well, thank you so much for this open and real conversation. One of the things that I love that you shared multiple times was talking about your story, because I think coaches show up and they're like giving just so many tips, 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 instead of diving into that story, letting somebody really get to know you and building that trust. Because I think what's going to set a marketer apart in 2025 and going forward is that ability to story tell.
Yeah. And because there really is unique client for every unique coach, the more you can tell your story, the more you'll attract the right people for you. And
Yeah.
you'll be working with the people that light you up and that give you joy and energy. And it won't feel like a slog, because you're literally creating a tribe of humans that were meant for you specifically.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for being here. Can you tell everyone where to find you? I know we have it in the show notes as well, but I always like to just
No
ask.
problem. So, as we said, I'm on Instagram and Facebook. My handle on Instagram is Naomi Lerman VDC, Victory Dance Coaching, on Instagram, and on Facebook. I also have a Facebook community group called the Victory Dance Community. And so you can find us on there. Right now, we're running a 4-day challenge. I don't know when this podcast will go up, but there'll be one next month also. So, the way to take part in that will be through the Victory Dance Facebook group. And you can also email me at victorydancecoaching@gmail.com, and reach out if you're interested in one-on-one coaching. You can always DM me Victory. Simple, easy. And I'd love to work with you. I'd love to hear who you are and to hear your story and to just guide you in the
And to
best way that I know
heal.
how. Thank you.
Heal, to have that safe person in your life that sees you and without judgment. I
Yeah.
think that's when
Yeah. Oh,
I
I'm not judging you. I've done all the things. I've made all the bad choices. Believe you me, I
I've
have
been down those
stories
roads.
years. There's nothing telling me that will shock me. I promise you. So yeah, exactly. Finding that one safe person. And it might not be me, and I can guide you to other people because like we have this community, right? But reach out. I'm literally just a couple text types away from you.
Well, thank you, Naomi, for being here today. All right, guys,
Thank you
follow
so
this magical woman. She has so much to share, and stay tuned for the next episode. Bye, guys.